artist, welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, so last week I talked about why the gallery system does not work out for most artists. So this week, what I wanted to talk about was three other paths for you to sell your art besides, the gallery system. Okay, so the number one way that works for most artists is selling direct to their customers, direct to their collectors. So whether it's prints or originals, selling direct, right? And I'm going to dive in. We're going to talk about this one the most because it's the one that I have the most experience with. The other way that artists, of course, can make money, make a living off of their art is through licensing. I have never licensed my work. My work I don't think has the licensing quality to it, licensability. But if you do feel like that is a path that would work for you, in licensing your work, I would highly recommend checking out Maria Brophy's book. I cannot remember the title of her book, but her name is Maria and then Brophy, Brophy. She does talk about selling in general and also selling direct to customers in general, but a big portion of the book talks about licensing because that is what she helped she and her husband worked together to do for his art. So licensing, and then I would say the third path, and maybe the least viable, I guess I would say, or maybe it's going to work for a very, very, very small percentage of people, and that is, getting grants, right? Getting grants or public art. Things like that. So again, that's not something I've ever had any personal experience with. So I won't be able to, share any expertise on that because I have none. I have no expertise on licensing or doing public art or getting grants for your art. But these are other avenues, selling directly to your customer, licensing, and let's say grants or public art. Like monuments, things like that. So I know of some artists that I went to school with who, like one artist in particular, who did really large animal sculpture. And I think he's gotten a lot of public art and grants and doing work for like zoos and parks and things like that. Okay. Public work for cities, for states, things like that. So, but today I really want to talk primarily about selling directly to your customers, directly to your collectors. And there's a number of different ways that we can do that as artists outside of the gallery system. And I have participated and done a lot of these. There's really only one type of thing that I haven't done. Okay, so first and foremost, selling online, which is the primary way that I sell my art now, is through selling online. I do not have a physical gallery space or a physical studio anymore open to the public or open for collectors to come into my studio. I used to, and that's another avenue. If you do have a physical space, is basically having your own studio shows, throwing your own events, selling directly through your own studio with physical in-person, openings, right? In-person events, in-person shows. And I have done those sorts of things in the past, and they were always successful. The majority of the time they were successful. Of course, there's a couple here and there that were less successful than other studio shows that I had, but those can be really, really beneficial to artists who are selling direct to their collectors, is just having a studio show. So I've done a lot of those in the past where I've invited, past collectors. I've had some events that were just VIP. They were actually paid events where I was doing a demonstration, and they got like a special gift, for coming that evening. I would always like restrict those to a certain number of people. So those are kind of more like special private, art parties, so to speak, for my collectors. That would come to those. And then I would offer like a special gift with purchase or a special discount to those collectors that evening only. So that's one thing that you can do is just through your physical studio selling direct. And then, of course, the second thing that we can do as artists is selling online now. We are living in the age of selling online. And yes, a ton of people are buying art online, my friends. So in the last podcast, I shared with you like the maximum amount of income I was able to make from galleries when I was in like 10 galleries was, I would say, I'm going to be generous and say 30,000 a year was like the max that I ever made. And I was in 10 galleries across the country. And it's not like I just did it one year and that was all I ever made, so I quit. No, I tried to make that work for like 7 years. And I just couldn't see a future in that path. I couldn't see it working out well for me in my future by staying on that path. So a lot of times I'll talk to artists about selling their art online, and they are, usually they just don't see how it's going to work, or they're so overwhelmed with the number of things that they have to learn in terms of technology. They're so frightened to be salesy, to ask for the sale on their own because they haven't learned how to do that. They've just been relying on, shows or galleries to do that for them, to sell for them. And or they just don't know what's actually possible with selling online, because not a lot of people are making the majority of their art sales online, or if they are, a lot of people aren't really talking about it, So, but I'm somebody who talks about things, right? Who shares my journey, shares my experience with all of you. And so I know for a fact that selling online works like a charm. It does take time to build. It does take time to learn. Again, you have to be patient, just like with everything, and you have to put in the effort and put in the work, and you have to deal with any mistakes or failures or low results that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Yes, you still have to deal with all of that. Okay, that is the price of admission. That's what it takes. So, but I will tell you, this past year, this last month alone, just Christmas, just December, 5 weeks, December through the first week of January, because I did an end of year New Year's blowout sale, which ran through the first week of January. I sold $30,000 worth of paintings alone in that 5 weeks. Just in 5 weeks. I am not kidding you guys. I am not kidding. Okay, so, and remember, this is the max I was able to make with 10 different galleries across the country in a year's time. Now, trust me when I say I never thought that this was possible. And I'm also going to share with you that I didn't even work my marketing, my painting sales efforts very hard this year. I just made a plan, I followed through with it, and those were the results, okay? So in 2020, 2020, I made a very definite hard push to increase my painting sales online, and that year I made $75,000 worth of painting sales online. And then last year I made a little bit more than that. I would say around 85,000. And this past year, I was more focused on my teaching, more focused on creating my courses, for online. So even though especially at the end of the year, I ran a lot of painting sales because that is the prime time for you to run painting sales if you're online, if you're selling online. So I knew I could not miss out on that opportunity at the end of the year. But I really did not even push that hard in the painting sales. And I'm not saying that to brag. I am saying that to share with all of you that this thing pays off. Selling your art online pays off over time. Again, it's that building momentum thing, right? So you want to start signing up for courses to learn how to do this. You want to work with, business coaches. You want to work with people who know how to do it and can mentor you on how to do it. So that you too can start to see the results. And really, the supply is unlimited. So I know last week I was talking about why the gallery system doesn't work for most artists, and the reason why is because it's a system based on scarcity. It's a system based on scarce supply. There's only so many galleries and there's X number of artists, right? And each gallery only has room for so many artists. And in fact, most galleries are taking on way too many artists, which just ends up, damaging the artists who are actually represented by the gallery. So it's like, I understand they want to support more artists, but they just can't support, they can only support like a handful of artists effectively because they can only throw so many shows. Most galleries I worked with were not actively, seeking to build and attract new collector base, right? So they only had so many collectors to go around. Anyways, so I'm saying this to say that, that model is built on like a scarcity model, whereas selling your artwork online, you have an unlimited supply of audience. You have really unlimited tools and technology that's in place now in order to help you reach that audience and reach them better, right? So it's just really the best time to be selling direct as an artist to your collectors. Okay, so online, when you're selling direct to your customers, so you can sell online. You can also sell if you have a physical studio or a physical gallery. If you're like me and your studio is in your home and you don't want people coming into your home, you could also rent out event space to do pop-up shows or collaborate with other venues, to do openings in collaboration with other businesses. So even if you don't have your own physical space, you can also, find another artist who does have a physical space and start to set up a show with them. Maybe set up your own group show. You can run your own advertisements, online and in local newspapers, if that's still a viable form of advertising. I'm not sure. It probably depends on your community for that or the area that you live in. So there's so many ways that you can sell direct to your customers. But I think the reason why most artists don't want to do that is because they want like this feeling of prestige that they think comes, this prestige and status that they think comes from having a gallery do that for them, right? Like that's like a milestone for them and it's accomplishment for them. For me, I don't care about any of that. That is not important to me. I don't care about, I had a solo show and that makes me feel so good about my work. I already feel good about my work. I already am proud of myself. I already feel self-assured as an artist just because of the work that I create, so that's not something really that I need. And I'm not putting that down either. If that's something that you decide is really important to you and something that you need, then definitely go for it, right? And make that choice and follow that path. Okay, so the other ways that you can sell direct to customers is, of course, through commissions. And this really works too if you are somebody that really likes to have like a deadline, also have some creative direction with your work, and have like an obligation to somebody that you have something to follow through on. I know so many artists who this works so well for them. They are so good at doing commission work. Meanwhile, I am the worst at it. I do not enjoy commission work. It torments me. I don't like it. I find no joy or pleasure in doing it. And so I just refuse to do it anymore. In fact, the last commission I did was like 3 years ago. The collectors contacted me wanting me to do a couple more commission pieces. And I said, I'm so sorry. You are the last person I did a commission for. And I just won't do anymore because it does not light me up. It does not give me joy. And I would rather put my time and effort elsewhere. So you also really need to know yourself as an artist, know what really works for you, what you're really good at. And usually I find that artists seem to fall into one of two camps. They're either really good at just creating their own concepts, their own work, and finishing that and following through with that and getting it out to the market, or they really thrive underneath that commission business model where they do a call for commissions, and they get all of the specifications worked out with their patron, and then they complete the piece for them, right? So that's the other way that you can sell direct to customers. And commission work doesn't just have to be portraits. I know that that's kind of the historical thing as portrait work, especially like the historical portraits like John Singer Sargent and others. But it doesn't just have to be portraits, although that is, a very lucrative genre to do commission work in. It doesn't just have to be portraits or pet portraits or things like that. I've known of some artists who do commissions of, bridal bouquets, paintings of the bridal bouquets, paintings of houses. I knew a couple of artists in Oklahoma that solely did commissions of people's houses. They wanted a painting, a rendering of their house. And also just, I've known a lot of artists who have just done general landscape commissions, collectors in that region that want paintings of their community or of something that really looks like their local area, whether it's local mountains or lakes or what have you. And so a lot of artists do really, really well with that business model and really thrive under it. So again, it can be incredibly profitable because people can get a custom piece that is really special to them, really custom to them, and then they are going to, of course, sing your praises to everybody, and you're going to get a lot of word of mouth, from customers. So the other way, of course, that you can sell direct to customers is through art shows or like art fairs or art events. This is another avenue that I've had very limited experience with. I've mostly done like some museum type of shows. Years ago, I did these shows called the Western Masters Show in Montana, which was like a big event. And those can be really beneficial because it's already an established event and they do a lot of the promoting for you. And so you show up with your work and try to build an audience in that area. It's usually very area focused, or regional focused, or in that case, like with the Western Masters, it was specifically, there was like even a specific style that was really appreciated there, like a Western art, a cowboy and Western art, which I am totally not a cowboy Western artist, so it's no surprise that too did not work out for me. I tried that for a few years, mostly because everyone was like, oh, it's such a prestigious thing to be invited to that, But the whole time I kept thinking, my work does not fit here, even though I really appreciated being included and invited and given the opportunity. I knew from the get-go that it just wasn't the right fit. So then, of course, there's other art shows. For example, if you live in an area or a community that maybe you're a part of a co-op gallery or like an art association. Different communities will vary in terms of how rich they are in these opportunities. And of course, if your area is really abundant in these kinds of opportunities, definitely take advantage of them. It really worked well for me whenever I was starting out in Connecticut. After I graduated in Old Lyme, Connecticut, there was multiple art associations that I was a member of, like Lyme Art Association, Mystic Arts Association, and there was another one I can't remember, but they would host regular shows in the community, and that community in particular was very their awareness of art was super high, so that also makes a difference. Like, they had a super high awareness of art and the value of art, and they were very accustomed to these regular shows, rotating shows on a monthly basis. Usually, I think it was maybe one a quarter or one every couple of months they would swap out for a different show. And so you might be able to showcase 12 different paintings throughout the year or more, depending on the show and how many pieces you could get juried in. So those kinds of shows are really great ways for you to also build a collector base. So depending on your area, you might want to look into your area and see, are there any art associations available? Are there any clubs or things like that you might be able to participate in any kind of art shows? And of course, like the art festivals, art fairs are really big ones that the cities usually throw. I've never participated in one of those, so I don't have any experience with that. I do know that with most of these opportunities, you do want to keep in mind that, of course, as we saw with COVID, that if something happens where it shuts those opportunities down, again, I just think it's wise as an artist nowadays to make sure that you're taken care of. Like if that opportunity were to disappear and go away, that you are financially taken care of. And not just financially, but also, emotionally, soulfully taken care of, because there's nothing harder as an artist than having a studio filled with paintings that are not selling and are piling up, and then you start to wonder, well, nobody wants my work. And that's not true. You're just going to have to do the work to find the people that want your work, right? To inspire people to want your work, inspire them to want to buy, and we can talk more about that when we discuss selling and how to sell better. So those are the other avenues, the other ways that you can sell your art, one of which I know a lot about, which is selling direct to customers, especially online now. And then the others, licensing and public art and grants, I don't know squat jack diddly about, other than little bits here and there that I've read about. So if those paths are something that interests you, I highly recommend that you start doing some research and get some help in those areas. Okay, so that's it for today, everybody. If anything, I hope that this maybe has given you some ideas, stimulated some ideas, things maybe for you to look into, to try. All I know is that in this day and time, it is possible for every artist out there to be a financially viable artist, to have a financially viable business. You just have to put in the work, and it really honestly doesn't matter how good your work is. You cannot have a build it and they will come mentality anymore in order to do this. You can't just say, well, my work is great, so people should just be flooding in the door to buy it. Well, a lot of people's work is great. And a lot of people's work is better than your work, and a lot of people's work is worse than your work, and they're maybe selling more than you are because they have learned how to market and how to sell, and they have taken advantage of the opportunities that are now out there. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that thought. As always, if you have any conversation, any thoughts you want to share back in return with me, I'd love to hear from you. So simply email me at info@artlifewithkelly, KELLI.com. And I'm wishing you all happy creating and Happy New Year. Bye.